Sorry to do this to you guys again. I know you don't come here for my movie takes, but I have something to say. The 2025 remake of The Fantastic Four, directed by Matt Shakman, coming out via Marvel Studios, is something that I want to believe in, but I am currently struggling. Now, Fantastic Four is a favorite of mine, so I have a horse in this race, and I'm tired of seeing that horse be abused, and I desperately hope for something to be done right by them. And despite what I think is some horribly misguided casting, I had begun to think that this upcoming movie was going to be the one that finally did something for me with regard to this property. And when I say misguided casting, do keep in mind that I think that all of the people on the list are fantastic actors. It has nothing to do with the ability of the individuals, but some people are just wrong for some roles, as is Pedro Pascal for Reed Richards and Vanessa Kirby for Sue Storm. I think Joe will do fine with Johnny Storm, and Eben will probably do fine with Ben Grimm. But the other two are misguided choices. Now, despite that, I'm just keeping an eye on it and looking at all the stuff coming out about it and trying to evaluate it on the move. And the recent potential plot leak was something that was kind of a ray of hope for me. I kind of like the weird direction they seem to be taking it. But I'll tell you what, everything that came out of Comic-Con actually dashes those hopes for me. And I'll tell you why. The footage that they showed at Comic-Con, I learned only after the fact, is rush footage that they shot for the convention. None of it was, they had not even begun production on the actual movie yet. So all of that was, they probably took excerpts from the script and went and did a day on each scene and shot these little clips to stitch together into like a mock trailer. But none of that will feature in the movie. All of that was before production, before probably final touches on sets and final decisions on hair and makeup. And so everything will look different, meaning they can't use any of that in the actual film. So what we were shown was nothing that actually has to do with what the movie will be at all, including the rendering of Galactus at the very end. It was made up. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm sure it was built upon models that they are currently favoring for their end product, but that's not what's actually going to be in the movie. Like, I don't think there's any chance that undergoes no changes between now and final CGI touches next year sometime. So that wasn't what we're going to see in the movie. None of the scenes with the actors were what we're going to see in the movie. It was all a Potemkin village, and if you know what that means, you know what I mean. And that's kind of concerning to me. It shows that Disney is betting hard on something that they don't have a reasonable estimate of the value of. They haven't actually created anything yet. They haven't seen anything yet and been able to evaluate it and be like, oh, yeah, you know what? We have something really good in our hands. So, we feel real good about promoting it in all of these ways. No, they have a script. They have a cast. They have a director. And they have a bunch of phony footage that has nothing to do with the actual movie. And they're parading that around as promotional material for a movie that doesn't exist yet. They're pushing hard. They wanted to get it in front of audiences at San Diego Comic-Con and get as much publicity as possible in this year running up to the release of the movie in July of 2025. And it just reeks of betting too heavy, too fast. And what stoked my worries even more was the interview that Matt Shakman and the cast did with E! News at San Diego Comic-Con. Now, granted, they had not shot the movie yet, so there was a lot in terms of experience that they could not speak to, and there were probably some things that they tried to not speak about because of NDAs and whatnot. But aside from those obvious things, it also seemed to me like these people don't know what they're talking about. It seemed like they don't know the Fantastic Four. It seemed like they don't have a good sense for the movie that they're planning on making. And Matt Shakman, every time he made any kind of commentary on the characters, he made some generalizations and parroted, like a couple things he's probably heard people say about the characters in YouTube videos and whatnot. But like a depth of understanding did not appear to be there, nor did it for any of the cast with regard to their own characters. They spoke in the worst generalizations, and not just to evade spoilers. It was in a way that made it pretty clear that they didn't know what to say about the characters because they didn't have the familiarity. So my concerns about the movie that's supposed to be coming out next year are actually beginning to mount in the face of what is intended to be cause for belief. All of this promotion that Disney is putting out there is meant to like stoke hope in this project and to get people excited about it. But as I look closely, it's actually doing the opposite for me. I know I'm an outsider on this one. I think people are really excited for this project, and I really want to be excited for it. But again, the more I see, the more worried I get. The more I see, the more evidence I have that the people making it are making a show of pretending to know what they're doing in advance of ever having shot a single legitimate take of any scene of the film. They're really putting the cart before the horse. And we've seen studios do that in big fashion before, where they just go all in on promote. They're just so serious about this project that they have. The actors are out there promoting it. The director's out there saying it's, his favorite project he's ever worked on. And then they scrap it. Think about Ben Affleck's Batman movie that was supposed to be. Now, I'm not suggesting that this movie is going to get canned, because it's not. It's absolutely coming out. I mean, Marvel's serious about it in that way, but they're playing their hand too hard for what they know about it right now, which is almost nothing. They're building up an insane amount of expectation, and I think it'll be a miracle if Matt Shakman actually films something that can rise to the level of expectation that they at least almost engendered in me. But I'll tell you what I think the actual fate of this thing is going to be. I think we're going to find out in about March or April of next year that it's not going to meet its July release date. It's going to get pushed back a little bit because during the course of production and post-production, they're going to find little hitches that they didn't expect because they've built up a public face for this thing that doesn't even exist yet. So the studio has to try as hard as it can to wrench this thing to fit that mask. And that could easily clash with what they find they have in their hands during production or during post-production. So there's going to be tweaking, there's going to be complications, there will probably be things that cause this movie to be pushed further out in terms of its release. And I think we'll get that news like late winter, early spring. Now what happens then? It stands an even worse chance of meeting expectations because you have made people wait longer for it. Now they'll make it, they'll release it, it'll probably be just fine, and it'll be like an integral part of the story of this current phase in the MCU. But I think it stands zero chance of meeting the expectations that they are creating for it because they have a director that I think does not know what he's doing. They have actors who do not fit the characters, and they have executives pushing a particular image of it. And again, it doesn't even exist yet. So everything seems nice and rosy right now, but there will be some clash on the other end of this. It won't meet its July release date. It'll open to decent box office numbers, but not great reviews. These are my predictions for this thing, given what we saw come out of San Diego Comic-Con. And as a side note, I want to know why... Okay, Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby are obviously actually together in real life right now. Like, they're dating, like 100%. But nobody's calling it that. Everything I see on YouTube is like, oh, their chemistry is so great. They're just oozing this chemistry as if they're like in character. And it's like, why isn't the news, oh, Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby struck up a relationship in pre-production for this movie? Like, that's obviously what's going on. They're not, they're hugging each other for pictures and stuff like that. Like, oh, the couple. But they're also just like impromptu holding each other's hand on stage. He's like caressing her arm. They're looking at each other in a way that's like, that kind of infatuation thing, someone you've been dating a couple of months. They're so obviously dating, like, in real life, and, like, nobody is saying that, and I'm just confused why. You guys have any insight? Anyway, that's all for this rant, but we will be back sometime in the very near future with some actual, like, mystery content, discussions about weird stuff, the stuff you came here for. But thanks for listening to me on this little sidetrack, and I hope you all have a good one.